Welcome back to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Kurt Madden, he is the superintendent for Bear Valley Unified School District, and it's hard to deny that for parents, grandparents, really anyone, we are focused like a laser beam on the tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary in Newtown, Connecticut. As an educator, how are you feeling?
This is on my mind, Brett. I think from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, I'm constantly processing where we are in relation to what's happened, trying to get our head around the big picture in our district, and also really come up with plans that we can ensure that all of our students and staff members are as safe as possible.
And if you think about it, it could never happen at Bear Valley, just like it could never happen at Newtown, Connecticut. I mean...
Well, and that's our worst fear. We're trying to really gear up, and what we're trying to do right now is get the big picture in our county and get together with some task force people, get together with our sheriff's department, our city manager, get some people off the hill up into our area and to really kind of see where we are.
But I want to be honest, at the same time not be an alarmist. How much really can be done? I mean... I have no doubt that the folks at Sandy Hook did everything they could to minimize casualties. And I don't want to second guess them. Maybe we'll find out that they should have had this door or that door locked. But how much can really be done?
Well, I think in those scenarios, you try to minimize damage. I had an opportunity several years ago down in San Diego. There was a shooting at Santana High School.
I remember.
And then Granite Hills High School shortly after. I worked at Granite Hills High School. I was actually on that campus the very, very next day. And
were you there on that day?
No, the very next day. I was called out.
But why weren't you there that day?
I was actually working somewhere else.
Were you a superintendent or administrator?
No, I was actually I was a vice principal at that time.
Okay.
Right. And I went on that campus, and Brad, it was just surreal. I knew exactly where the person stood, you know, when the shooting took place, and I reflect a lot on the past and the present, but
I don't want to minimize the importance of looking at gun control versus gun rights, but I do want to focus on mental health. Because in the final analysis, the shooter clearly suffered dramatically throughout his entire life. And what he did was horrendous and inexcusable. But something happened in his lifetime that caused this horrific act. He was only 20.
Correct.
And so as a result, he's not that far out of public schools. What can be done in public schools, private schools, to intervene when you see a child? I mean, look, we all had them. I remember kids who something wasn't right.
Well, I would say we really have to start in homes. Schools can't do it alone, and it's in homes really assessing our children to see where they are. If emotionally they're not right, we really have to have an intervention. In our schools, look for those warning signs. We're in the people business. It's so important for our teachers, for our clerical staff, for our administrators to be out and about.
But the flip side of that is I recently learned that at my home high school, I grew up in Calabasas, California, there was a child who allegedly had a hit list. I don't know the particulars. But apparently that child was expelled from the district. Again, I don't know the particulars, but I don't know if that feels right. I mean, you're out. Now what? The child's angry.
Correct.
The child has nowhere to go.
Correct.
Is that the best approach? And again, take it as a hypothetical, not about that particular situation.
And let me respond to that. I think short term it's the best thing to do to ensure the safety of the students and the staff members on that campus to get some normalcy back in place. At the same time, we really have to have some interventions and really a remediation plan for that student.
But how do you have an intervention if you've expelled this child from the district? He's out.
Sure.
There were no criminal charges as I understand it.
What we try to do is really put them in line with some community resources and really work with the family and do everything we can so when that student comes back into a school district, you're doing everything possible to make it perfectly clear these are our expectations and really transition that student as soon as possible. I think the other thing that I will want to mention is just our media, the pop culture, the internet. When you and I were younger, if we wanted to be in a group or a club, we have to kind of, you know, get into it. And nowadays, if you can get in front of a computer screen, it's just a click away, and before you know it, you're in there. So many of our students, when they're exposed to that for 6 or 8 hours every day for weeks and months and years.
I guess, though, what I'm wondering is, maybe I'm a bleeding heart, but I just feel like sometimes these strange kids just need hugs. You know, and so when you talk about expectations and benchmarks, I don't know. Again, maybe I'm a bleeding heart, but What about the personal connection?
Well, that's the key. And
Yeah.
I've always learned if you can get into a child's heart,
Yeah.
you can get into their head. And also working with our staff members too, just to say you've got to make a connection with that student each and every day. And again, when we get out to schools, even in our positions as superintendents, we want to make sure we're making that connection. And I just call it situational awareness, because emotionally when a person's not right, when things are causing problems in a classroom, in a school, how can they engage in learning? It's almost impossible.
Right.
Almost impossible.
I hesitate to shift, but I will slightly and talk about Proposition 30.
Oh, one of your favorite topics, Brad.
which passed, but I'm going to loop it in. I'm going to try to make a smooth transition.
Okay.
And that transition being, given that there are now, the bleeding has stopped in terms of budget cuts, are there opportunities for school districts like yourself to look at funding mental health positions, programs, interventions?
I'm very optimistic, and I would say yes, there are opportunities that are going to be created at the state level. Our state superintendent of public instruction, Tom Torlickson, he has already written the President Obama, along with other state superintendents, to say we have got to come up with something soon. We can't do it alone, because again, funding is really, really tight. So there's got to be, some opportunities, because just in our district of 2,600 students, just in the past 4 or 5 days, the dialogue has been healthy, it's been good, and people are very, very concerned.
So talk to me about the parents, the children. As you know, I have 2 daughters, 10 and 8.
Correct.
So that's 5th grade and 3rd grade. And surprisingly enough, they're not really discussing it. We had a single conversation, and that was it. I would have thought they'd want to process more.
And I was surprised. I was at 3 of our schools the other day, and I checked in with every single teacher I could without disrupting the class, and I heard the exact same thing. Very, very little conversation. I would only guess, though, at a high school level, though, that's where the dialogue would really start.
You think?
Oh, absolutely. Because just developmentally, a student, when they're 15 and 16 and they're a junior and a senior in high school, they're going to open up a little bit more.
That being said, I'd love to get your thoughts, even though we're a few weeks out now, about how we as parents should engage in that conversation. Because questions are still coming up.
Correct. Well, again, I don't like to give advice because I'm a parent too, and I've learned by doing or not doing.
But you're more than a parent.
Well, thank you.
You're more than a parent. You are a superintendent. So,
you're very kind.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I look over our district as I have 2,600 children.
Exactly.
And I have to make sure that I'm at peace with myself each and every day. I think the important thing is to really point out a few things if the opportunity presents itself. What happened most recently was very, very, very uncommon.
Right.
And we have to recognize that. At the same time, really reinforce the importance of schools are probably the best place to be.
Of
as compared to at home, unsupervised. We know anything can and will happen. And continue to move on and learn from significant events, just like back in Connecticut, and be better prepared. I think there's things that we can control, and there's things we cannot control.
What about, it was many years ago, but I hearken back to my high school days. I mean, kids were cruel, just cruel. I don't know if that cruelty still is pervasive today, but how do we talk to our children about eliminating that cruelty? Because it was awful.
It is back to, I think, just core values at home, core values in a classroom, core values in a school, and core values in a district. Simply saying, we don't do that here.
But when I was in high school, large classrooms, teachers, and it's just that way today.
Brad, I think you and I were in the exact same situation. I was a little bit before your time. But it's that bullying issue, and what's scary right now is with Facebook, and that's the way many people talk and relate. And versus when we were younger, if we had an issue, we might go to the church after school and 1 or 2 punches, but now it's gone to a whole new level. And it's really, really scary, because when children get bigger, the potential for injury and harm are significant.
But to me, the most damaging harm is emotional. It's not even the punches.
I would agree, and I grew up in an inner city environment, and I've been an administrator inner city, and it's a whole different world. I'm glad that I had that experience earlier on. At the same time, even where we are in Bear Valley, we know one event can trigger another event and another event. So.
His name is Kurt Madden. He is the Superintendent of Schools for Bear Valley Unified School District. I'm Brad Pomerance. You're watching Charter California Edition. Welcome back to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest is Mike Gardner. He's a member of the Riverside City Council. He's also chair of the California Seismic Safety Commission. But first, I want to speak about Riverside. Then we'll talk about earthquakes.
Okay.
As you know, Ron Loveridge, the legendary mayor of Riverside, has retired. He was mayor since 1994. I think it's fair to say that he was revered not only in Riverside, but throughout the nation. He had been chair of the California League of Cities, the National League of Cities. Talk to us about his retirement and then looking towards the future.
Well, one of the things about Mayor Loveridge is he changed the role and the power of the office of mayor in Riverside. Our charter hasn't changed a bit. The legal powers are exactly the same, but through his leadership style and the force of his personality and his ability to argue a point and bring people together, he changed the office of mayor in Riverside from being purely ceremonial to an actual position of power and authority and leadership.
I mean, if you think about it, the charter of Riverside does set up a weak mayor.
It is, by definition.
Really, the city manager is the person with the more power, and then the council.
Right.
But Mayor Loveridge never issued a veto, which he could have, but he used the threat. And he used it well.
Yes, he did. He used it successfully 3 times that I can recall.
Mm-hmm. So let's look forward. The new mayor, a young man, a Rusty Bailey, you had run against him, but ultimately endorsed him. A council member, former council member before his election, a high school teacher, 2 young children. Very different from Ron Loveridge.
He is, although when Ron was first elected, he was a college professor with 2 young children.
Yes, no,
incidentally, both daughters, just like Rusty.
Yes.
Rusty has a different style than Ron does. Ron's a little more deliberative by nature, I think, than Rusty is.
And some say to a fault. Some say that his deliberative, collaborative style may have been...
I would even agree with that sometimes, and I think Ron is the best mayor in our city's history, certainly in my memory.
Right. And that's ancient.
Yeah, it is. I've been here over 40 years.
There you have it.
In fact, I've been here longer than Rusty's been alive.
That's interesting. That is very, very interesting. So how is Mr. Bailey done so far? It's just been a few weeks.
I think quite well. He is beginning to show his personality. He's leading the meetings, the council meetings, in the way that he wants to do it. He's being a little more firm with people who talk longer than their allotted 3 minutes in a nice way. I think it's going to work very well.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt he has tough shoes to fill, but I think it helps, arguably, that he was endorsed by Ron Loveridge. Yes. He was endorsed by many of you on the council. I think there's a lot of wind at his back.
There is.
And I want to speak about Mother Nature, as I mentioned, wind. It's an attempt at a segue. I don't know if it will work, but I'll give it a shot. From wind to earthquakes, let's give that a shot. You are the chair of the California Seismic Safety Commission, and I know that coming up in March, there will be some really groundbreaking studies. Another attempt at a segue. Groundbreaking studies in Lake Tahoe. Why don't you tell us about those studies?
Well, the studies in Lake Tahoe are really sort of a demonstration of a truly unique device that is being prepared for a Northern Illinois University study in Antarctica. They have a remotely operated submersible which will collapse, and they'll drill a hole through the Antarctic ice, something over half a mile in depth.
Wow.
Lower this submersible through it, and then it unfolds to its operating mode below the ice, and it has a wide range of capabilities. You can take pictures, it can collect samples, but one of the most important things is it has an acoustic subsurface mapping technology. So it can map what is below the bottom of the ocean.
The sediment.
The sediment, well, not just the sediment, but the earthquake faults below and the rock structures.
But the key is that Northern Illinois University is going to Lake Tahoe first.
Yes.
To test it out.
We need to test, they need to test the device that, in fact, it will unfold as it's supposed to and then refold so you can retrieve it back through the hole in the ice.
Why Lake Tahoe? Why do we get the benefit of it?
A couple of reasons. Lake Tahoe has the right depth. It's over 1,600 feet deep. and it's very cold water, as you have in Antarctica.
No doubt. And so will we get the benefit of the test?
We will, because while they're testing what it actually does in the water, they will be doing bottom mapping and checking for earthquake faults. We know that there are faults in the bottom of Lake Tahoe. We know that it's very steep-sided, and there have been some big landslides. There's evidence that long ago, whether it's caused by an earthquake or just a big landslide, there was a tsunami, or siege as it's called in a lake, that would have been devastating to the shoreline development that exists today.
So interesting.
So
interesting.
Now we get to actually go take a look at those kinds of things, and it will help with planning for shoreline development, evacuations if you need to do that. It's just going to increase the scientific knowledge and therefore the planning for the area tremendously.
So is the device not only looking at earthquakes, and I'm talking about studies of Lake Tahoe and of the Antarctic, but also looking at global warming issues?
It will help study, particularly in the Antarctic experience, what's happening with the rate that ice is melting.
Right.
And it's underlying part of the ice structure in Antarctica is a huge freshwater lake that most people don't know about.
So
it's on land.
Wait, so it's under the ice?
Under the ice.
There's a freshwater lake.
Yes.
That hasn't frozen.
Exactly.
I don't understand, but that's okay. I'm not that smart. So what do we do with this freshwater lake?
Well, they think, they've never tapped it before. They think there may be some really interesting life forms there. And part of the experiment is to find out what's there. There's not light.
Yeah, I've seen some specials on Discovery Channel or whatever it may be, and they have found fish in caves with no light and therefore no eyes.
Right.
The eyes have evolved out.
Right. They're thinking this may be more microorganisms than larger, but no one knows.
This is
we'll
fascinating.
Help find out.
You must be so enjoying your time learning about earthquake issues. I'm not sure if you're prepared to speak about this, but I want to ask if you don't mind, and that's the question of what's happening at Diablo Canyon, which is in Central California. You know, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding whether there should be offshore mapping. Have you stayed abreast of those developments?
I have, and the Seismic Safety Commission is assisting in an independent peer review committee that advises on that.
So as you know, PG&E had made an application to do some offshore mapping, and it looked like it was moving forward, but in the last few months it seems to have become derailed.
The mapping effort was approved by the State Lands Commission, but it was not approved by the California Coastal Commission. So that kind of leaves California government headed, in this case, sort of by the Public Utilities Commission, who's responsible for the utility side. Diablo Canyon is a nuclear power plant operated by Pacific Gas and Electric. It leaves the state in an interesting position in terms of determining whether...
So there are two agencies, and they've taken opposite positions.
They have.
Oh my.
The Coastal Commission's responsibility is to protect the marine environment and the ocean. It's a narrow purpose agency. Public Utilities Commission is responsible for a broader range of issues. And so the Public Utilities Commission would like to have the results of the studies to decide whether...
they break the tie?
We don't know that.
I mean, literally. I mean,
from a legal perspective, the two entities are roughly parallel in authority. One doesn't have power over the other. I'm not sure how this will be resolved. The governor may step in and give some direction as to what the administration would like to see happen.
Can he?
You can always ask. You can't tell.
He cannot demand.
Right. Can't compel.
I'm rendered speechless. Where does the Seismic Safety Commission come into this?
My commission doesn't really have a role. From a scientific perspective, more information is better always.
Sure.
You can make a better decision. Everyone wants to see marine mammals protected.
Of course.
And the offshore testing could have a negative impact on marine mammals. That was Coastal Commission's concern.
His name is Mike Gardner. He's a member of the Riverside City Council. My name is Brad Pomerance. We thank you so much for watching Charter California Edition. Welcome back to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Raquel Castaneda. She is a spokesperson advocate for Tuition Magician. She has been an activist for student and education for years. I thought we'd start to talk about her student activism all the way back to Burbank High and Gardena High, and then talk about Tuition Magician. Thanks for joining us, Raquel.
Thanks
we appreciate
so
it.
Thank you.
So tell us about how you got started in student activism, because it's a good story.
It's a great story. It's a long road. I a budding activist in high school.
Right.
I went to Burbank High School, and I saw opportunities to fight for students' rights there. They wanted to impose a dress code on kids that, you know, that maybe seemed a little unconventional, and I just thought it wasn't right. So we led a walkout all the way to City Hall, and you know, there's a big article in LA Times written about me.
Right. And you've been fighting ever since.
Ever since.
So let's talk about today, because the reality is, yes, Prop 30 passed.
Yes.
And many in the student activism community, education community, are pleased about that, because if it had not passed, tuition would have increased dramatically.
Sure.
That being said, it's still, you know, $12,000 to go to UC, and that's just tuition. It's still $6,000 to go to CSU, and that's just tuition. That's a lot of money for people.
Right.
And so talk to me about what you're doing, what Tuition Magician is doing to try to help students that maybe can't find scholarships for whatever reason.
Right. I work a lot in the community, and I'm helping out this group, Tuition Magician. And what we're trying to do with this program is come alongside kids that maybe don't have the opportunity to apply for traditional scholarships. You know, maybe they've lost a parent, they make too much money, they're slightly under the GPA.
It is amazing how many kids fall right in the gap. I mean, it's so frustrating. You need a 3.5, you have a 3.4. You need to be of a certain ethnicity, you're the wrong ethnicity. You need to be a boy, but you're a girl. You need to be studying X, but you're studying Y. I mean, it's remarkable.
Yeah, it really is. So what we try to do is provide an opportunity to fit those kids. We're really trying to bridge the gap, you know, in California, and building out our middle class. We've got to be able to support our kids everywhere. So this program, what it does is it goes out and seeks out kids that maybe are artists or non-traditional career based.
And that's another issue, is that maybe you're not going to CSU, but you're going to an excellent art institute or a mechanics college. It's still expensive, but you need assistance. And so it really, I mean, I'm very impressed. I'm very impressed this organization is really looking at the kids that are underserved for a variety of reasons.
Sure, sure.
So tell me more about those kids, how you find them, how you raise your money.
Well, you know, there shouldn't be a difference in a kid that goes to school on the west side than a kid that goes to school on the east side.
Right.
So what we're looking to do is we have them go through an application process, and we kind of judge them based on opportunity and merit, and kind of help them meet their educational goals. So they would apply directly through the website,
which is tuitionmagician.org.
Yes, and we're building this thing out, and what I'm doing is I'm helping them raise money, because ideally what the vehicle we want to do is kind of build like a thrift store chain where kids can work there and earn money for schools and scholarship, and that would just greatly serve the community. So
so there's a vision.
It's a big plan.
It's a huge vision.
Yes.
So right now, there are no thrift stores, I presume.
No, we're working on that, yes.
I mean, I didn't know this.
Right.
This is tremendous. So what's that going to look like?
Well, it's, you know, you take vehicles like Salvation Army
Right.
or Out of the Closet, and you're seeing this formula provide services, you know, jobs and substance abuse. I mean, for tons of different needs.
HIV.
Yes, for these people. So the same type of vehicle with the thrift store would help, you know, bring in jobs for the kids and be like a beacon in the community where people could, you know, recycle and bring in their used items, and these clothing items would go into, you know, jobs and scholarships for the kids.
So how far are we from these stores? Because I'm ready to go.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready to
Are you ready? Do I have your help?
You have my help. No, but honestly, it really does make a lot of sense. I don't know why someone didn't think of it before, but
sure.
So how far off are we from this?
Sure, we're looking really hard in 2013 to build this out. So. Yeah.
So how can we get involved?
You can get involved by pledging on the website, or just, you know, kind of coming in to support.
Right.
This will be started in Mike Otto's district. So
let's talk. Mike Otto is a member
Yes.
of the California State Assembly. He represents an area, a significant area of the San Gabriel Valley. He's chairman of the Appropriations Committee,
Yes.
and has been someone who has been working to create more educational access for, you know, his term in the Assembly.
Right, and anything educational based Mike is really supportive of. So we're looking to start this and build this out in his district.
So is this organization new? I mean, can we start applying for scholarships now?
You can!
It is time. I mean, this is the time. I have a niece who's in 12th grade. So this is the time then when we are starting to look for those scholarships. Because look, I mean, $12,000 at UC, if you go to a private institution, I mean, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000.
Right.
The need is there. So talk to me about the application process.
Sure.
How do we march down that path?
It's a simple application process. You can apply on the website, and we're taking submissions currently. I am in the process of, raising money to help, fund these scholarships. So you can apply immediately. We're looking to help kids in the the next year. So
let me ask you. You've been working in this space for a long time. You're busy. You're successful. Something about this space spoke to you. Sure, Mike Otto had talked to you about it, Assemblymember Mike Otto, but there has to be something more than just Assemblymember Mike Otto asking you about this. What is it about this organization that spoke to you?
It's really important to me that everyone get a chance to go to school. No matter what high school you graduate from, what demographic you grew up in, it's really important to me that every child knows that their future in education is important. I wanted to come alongside a program that supports that you don't have to fit into any, any socioeconomic box, or gender box, or, race or religion box. So this is a program that is very just general, based on merit and need.
And it's interesting because when you think about California specifically, a person in the middle class in California makes a lot more money than the person in the middle class in Colorado, and yet we fall into these categories. So we can't, it just costs so much more to live here, even though we're making more money, so we can't apply or qualify for scholarships. So it makes it all that more frustrating, because to get scholarships you need to be, challenged financially, or a super genius. And, other than you and I don't know who else a super genius is, so be that as it may. Have you met with students yet? Have you had a chance to talk to the applicants, either with this organization or otherwise? Because I want to hear what they're like, how they touch you and touch other members of your organization.
I have, there's a lot of kids that come from divorced families.
Right. And that can be the most financially challenging.
Sure, and the family's really busy, so all the information support they get is, through school, and so they don't have a lot of time, a lot of resources.
And public schools, I mean, they're hard pressed. As I understand it, at many public schools, there may be one college counselor per 500,000 kids. So it's information. I mean, it really, there's someone on our staff I want you to meet immediately after this, because he's an incredibly gifted young man. His daughter's on her way to college, but if you don't know what you don't know. I mean, it's that simple, and so much of us don't know how to access the information to get us the scholarships that makes the difference between going to a four-year college and not.
Right.
And so, okay, so give us as we conclude our conversation, tell us exactly how we can access your website, how we can access either as a student, as a donator. Tell us what we can do.
Sure, you can apply directly for it at tuitionmagician.org, and you feel free to reach out to me. I'm at.
Do you want to give out your information?
Of course.
I'm going to write this down. What's your how do we get to you?
I'm at Raquel at RaquelCastaneda.com. You can also find me on Facebook at Raquel Castaneda official fan page, and Twitter at Castaneda Raquel.
And I presume it's Raquel as in Raquel Welch?
As in Raquel Welch.
How did that happen?
Oh, the 70s, honey.
The 70s were just a crazy time.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Okay, her name is Raquel Castaneda. She is an advocate, a spokesperson for the new organization that's growing out of the San Gabriel Valley. It is called Tuition Magician. If you want to learn more about that organization, of course, sign on to their website, tuitionmagician.org. My name is Brad Pomerance. We thank you for watching Charter California Edition.